It was a remarkable run for Jari Evans with the New Orleans Saints. Truly one of the best players the franchise has had. Kudos to him. Thanks to him for a job well done. And you see the stat on Pro Bowls, and unfortunately you kind of have to qualify it these days. It doesn't mean what it once did, because you got a lot of people that frankly don't want to play in the game anymore, so they don't go. So you got replacement after replacement basically. So it doesn't mean as much, but still it's significant. Ricky, I'll address you with that, because when you made a Pro Bowl, it was legitimate. It was hard to do. There were so many good linebackers in the NFL in those days, and to have that honor was special. It's a lot different today, isn't it, Rick?
Oh, a lot different. I mean, now, you got cities voting for, as All-Star games now is nowhere near. Before, you had the Lawrence Taylors, you had the Ricky Jackson, you had the E.J. Jr., the Pat Swiller. You had to beat a guy out to get there, and you had to have a great year. But now, it's like the biggest city can put all the votes in, and they can get you in all kind of ways now. So
yeah, more on the Pro Bowl and more on All-Star games coming up later in the show. But Ricky, obviously, when you look at the guys that get in and how it happens now, it's a totally different animal than it used to be. The game is different too. They don't play it like they played it when you played, so it's just not the same elephant.
Well, I mean, they worry about all the concussions and all the injuries and stuff for long term, what happened to a guy when they get through with football. But, when you play in the game, you know all these chances and risks that you're taking. And if you're going to give a guy something for getting hurt, you give him something at the end and take care of him as good as you can. But you make the game stay the same and let people see real football.
I know you want to say something positive about Jari Evans and what he did for the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, I mean, he was a great player. He's going to go on to be, get him a couple more years with a good team. And my thing is, he still was the first or second best lineman the Saints had. I mean, and he protected Drew Brees well. I mean, and now you got to go out now and try to find somebody to do the same thing when, they worry about money with Evans, but they didn't worry about money with Bird and other guys, so it's just hard to see that.
How do you see it, Brian?
Pretty much the same way. It's just, Jari had taken a pay cut a year ago, and I actually applaud Jari, is that, what, at some point a player has to say, okay, I've given back, but I can still play, and I think I'm worth more than that. And I'm for one, I'm hoping that he goes and gets a good contract out on an open market and finishes his career with a flourish.
Well, the Saints finally announced their transactions that everybody had basically reported on prior to then, but they finally came out on Friday, and the roster moves being made, including the release of Jari Evans. David Hawthorne, get that number back, buddy. Ramon Humber, and Shantavius Jones, and then the Saints signed Troy Carter as a cornerback free agent out of Canada, and Austin Johnson, the fullback, who is an exclusive rights free agent, who has value at fullback, but also on special teams. So, and noticeably absent from that list is Brandon Browner, who's basically told everybody he's gone, that he's already been told, but we haven't seen that yet. So, Brian, what about these moves? Anything get your attention here?
No, not really. I mean, a lot of those are cost saving, and it's real possible that at some point one of these guys might come back at a reduced price. I always wonder about the fullback position on this team, Kenny. I really do. But you're right. I mean, Austin Johnson's here for special teams more so than from a fullback position. But nothing wows me yet. But hopefully, like Ricky, something's down the road that's going to wow us.
And Ricky, in the case of Hawthorne, I joke about the number. It's an issue to you, obviously. But that said, he had plenty of opportunity. He just didn't turn out to be the player they hoped he would be.
No, I mean, but my thing, he tried hard. He just didn't work out for him. But I look at a lot of more guys, you got a lot of money tied up into, some of your kickers and, your secondary. And, you put yourself in a position where how much money can you get back? You're paying a kicker like about $3 million. You're paying the secondary, you're paying Bird like $4-5 million back there. You got Browner back there with $4-5 million. So you got a lot of money tied up into those guys who you didn't get a whole lot of production from last year.
Speaking of money, Brian Ellie Walsh wrote a piece for sportsNOLA.com this week about dead money, and the Saints, of course, are in a bit of a perilous position where this is concerned, because clearly it's an issue for this football team. Brian, as you look at some of those numbers, the dead money, including Gillette, Evans, Hawthorne, Bunkley, and then the others as well, you look at where the Saints are, and it's the most in the NFL in terms of dead money. And that's what you wrote about, and it's a real issue for this team.
It is a real issue because it's one of these things that really hamstrings an organization as it goes into a rebuilding season. And when you're 22 million dead to the cap, that's wasted money, okay? And obviously Junior Galette takes up more than half at this point, but I think there's more dead money to come, Kenny, I really do.
Well, right now it's 15% of their cap.
Yeah, absolutely, and the next team up is Atlanta at 15 million. So it just shows you, when you do this, that means a couple of things, but primarily it means that there's been some bad business, or some business decisions that haven't panned out. Let's say it that way.
And you're going to add to that number when Brandon
Brown
move is made.
that could be 5 million, I think, Kenny, something like that. So, yeah.
Bottom line is, Ricky, that it's not a number you like at all. I guess the only positive is that you see from the Saints is that when guys aren't productive, they typically cut the cord and they don't worry about how much dead money you're dealing with.
Yeah, well, I mean, but, that's something that you should never have to go through, because, you can have 1 or 2 dead money issue, but when you got this many, that's just way too many. Then you got 3 or 4 more guys on the team that you should let go, because they not the guys going to take you to the Super Bowl. So, you might as well just get rid of the next 3 or 4 and get it all out the way at one time.
It's an evaluation process,
Right.
and obviously that's where they've erred maybe a few too many times, right?
Yeah, and Kenny, it should be noted, and I did note it in the story, is that everybody makes bad decisions.
Sure.
They are part of doing professional sports, all right? And the good teams and the good talent evaluators are those that keep their mistakes to a minimum. So you can't let these continue to mount year after year.
Well, I seen one thing I did see, the Saints still got 1 in 45 chance of making the Super Bowl just because
Right.
of Coach Payton. I seen that, and I was like, man, I wish they had the numbers up to 1 in 100 where
Right.
you can at least take a shot at them.
Right.
But 1 in 25 or 1 in 45, you can't take a shot with that.
As long as you got Drew Brees, you still have a
Drew
chance,
Brees,
right?
too. Yeah, you're right.
Speaking of which, Rick, you expect him to still be a player at a very high level next year?
Yeah, I mean, just like Peyton. Peyton didn't get hurt this year. I mean, even though he was 39, I mean, he still can play football. Drew can play football. Or he got to have the people around him. You know what I mean? He only gonna be as good as the receivers in his line. If they give him no protection, he's not a running quarterback. He can't get away from people. And if you don't have good receivers to get over him and catch the ball and do well, he'll be a mediocre quarterback. But if he got those guys and got the right weapon, he can beat you.
Reading some of the numbers that have been put out as recently as today, it looks like the cap is going to go up enough to where the Saints may actually be at the number right now. That's the good news. The bad news is they're going to have to make some more moves, Brian, because they're going to have to sign some other people. They've got, of course, the draft picks coming in. You got free agents, and you got everything else to consider. So even though they might be at that number now, they're still going to have to make some slashes.
And and what it does is it really emphasizes the importance of striking with your good draft picks. I mean, Andres Pete's going to play this year. When you get rid of Jari Evans, you've got to fill that spot either with Clemente or someone else, but you've got to find somebody to play that position. They've got Max Unger at center, and they've got the tackle on the left, so Armstead. So, I mean, they've got a young, improving line.
Well, let's take a look right now at the team numbers against the cap in the NFL. And get this, the Saints are not number 1. Buffalo is number 1 in terms of their position against the cap. The Saints, clearing a lot of space last week, put themselves now second to worst. New England, third, but they always find a way. Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and Miami. That's from overthecap.com. So, Ricky, you look at the fact that the Saints reduced that number. They're now second worst, but you look at some of those teams on that list. That's a pretty interesting group there when you're talking about New England and Pittsburgh in particular being part of that. 2 very successful franchises.
Yeah, but Ken, I look at those traditional, those teams, but my whole thing with the Saints right now coming up of how many free agents want to come here? You know what I mean? You've been 7-9 the last 2 years. What draw do you have for those guys who want to come here? I mean, and last year you went out, you got a couple of guys, but nobody really wanted those guys. I mean, when you got Browner and you got Bird, nobody, a good team trying to win the Super Bowl doesn't want those guys. So that's the whole thing for me. How many good players out there that the Saints can go out and get?
Well, they really can't afford to go out and spend money on anybody like that, Brian.
Yeah, absolutely, Kenny. That's what happens when you have dead money like that. It really prevents you from going out and really testing the free agent market. You don't have any money, so what you've got to do is you've got to get guys that are coming in with question marks, right? maybe at the end of a career, or guys that are unproven and given an opportunity. In '09, they won a Super Bowl. People wanted to come here. Like Ricky said, the last couple of years, there's not a whole reason why you want to come here.
Well, it all gets back to the draft, Ricky. You've got to draft well. You have to. It's imperative. And then you have to get lucky with one guy like a Delvin Breaux guy every year, basically.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, and when it comes down to the draft, you got to make sure that you honing in on what you need. I mean, you can't, you know, I mean, a lot of guys say, I'm going to take the best guy on the board. You know, you got to take the best guy for what the Saints need, and, you know, and that's the way you play football.
You know, this club has gone into the Canadian Football League the last couple of years. Delvin Breaux, Tony Carter now. You know, I mean, these are ways or methods that they can kind of circumvent being so tight under the cap. Get guys that want to come play in the NFL and have some abilities, and you don't have to pay them as much right now. So,
and of course, they have been good over the years at identifying those diamonds in the rough as free agents, undrafted free agents, or even late round draft picks that have come through for this team, and hopefully that will continue to be the case. But it would help a lot if they hit on their early round draft picks in better fashion than they have. We are here at our very good dealership, Sports NOLA TV, brought to you by Premier Chrysler Jeep Dodge, located at 13,000 I-10 Service Road in New Orleans East. At Premier, you'll get a reliable and stylish new or used car at a price you can afford. With Premier's expansive inventory of new and used cars, stop by the dealership for all of the New Year hot deals. Next to talk Pelicans here on Sports NOLA TV in just a moment.